Welcome to the radio, my dear listeners. What time is it over there, and where are you listening from? This is Quilloren Radio, where the hours unfold quietly, and the only thing you need to do is breathe a little slower. If this is your first time with us, feel free to subscribe. We ease into stillness here every week. Tonight's story takes you back to 1998. You are working the counter at a small camera store. You know every lens, every shutter click. But lately, everyone just wants digital. They say it like it's magic. You nod politely and wait for the film to come back. Without further ado, let's begin. The key turns with a soft click, and the metal security gate rattles as it rises. You lift it slowly, just enough to duck under before it clatters into place with a reluctant groan. The sidewalk is still damp from the morning's brief rain, and the edges of yesterday's newspaper cling to the bottom corner of the storefront. You step inside and shut the glass door behind you. The bell overhead gives its usual stuttering ring, as if it's still unsure about doing its job. The air inside is dry and faintly dusty. There's the familiar scent of old cardboard, printer toner, and something plastic that never quite airs out. You pause and take it in, like an opening note of a song you've heard too many times to count. A fluorescent light overhead flickers, then steadies with a quiet hum. The Kodak sign near the front window gives off its usual faded yellow glow. You don't remember when it last looked new. Maybe 1995. You walk slowly behind the counter, your steps soft on the linoleum that dips slightly near the middle. There's a soft squeak from your shoe as you turn toward the back wall, where the rows of hanging camera straps sway gently, as if nodding good morning. You flip the small cardboard open sign over in the window. The suction cup makes a tiny pop. No one is outside yet. A shelf near the front lists to one side. You keep meaning to fix it, but customers rarely browse that one anymore. Just a mix of blank VHS tapes and 8mm reels that gather dust in equal measure. One of the tapes has a faded sticker that reads, "Do not erase," in marker, but the brand label peeled off years ago. You've stopped wondering what was on it. It's better that way. The register wakes up with its familiar chime. A red digital display blinks to life, showing zeros with the urgency of a countdown that never starts. You reach under the counter and take out the small cleaning cloth, giving the glass top a few slow wipes. There's a fingerprint near the corner. You leave it there, it's probably yours. Behind the counter, there's a small corkboard where old notes and expired promotions overlap. A flyer from a 1997 clearance event still clings to the pushpin with quiet pride. Someone once doodled a smiley face in blue ballpoint on the bottom edge. It's become part of the decor now. Next to it, a schedule from 3 months ago remains taped to the wall, even though it no longer matches the calendar. You haven't felt the need to update it. The backroom door sticks a little when you push it open. Inside, boxes of unused stock wait patiently in stacks that have started to lean into each other for support. You grab a roll of receipt paper and step back out, catching a glimpse of your reflection in the convex security mirror overhead. It warps you slightly, as if the store itself isn't quite sure who you are today. That's fine. Neither are most of the customers. You pass the photo counter, where a small cardboard sign still offers 1-hour development, though it now takes closer to 2. The film drop box has a gentle clunk when you test it. A single roll rests at the bottom, probably left late yesterday. You'll get to it later. A camcorder display in the corner cycles through its looping demo tape, the audio low and tinny. A man in a windbreaker stands beside a waterfall, smiling stiffly as he waves. His voice rises and falls in a monotone pitch, but you stopped listening long ago. You keep the volume low so it doesn't drown out the small, familiar sounds, the low hum of the lights, the shifting click of the ceiling fan as it turns slightly off-center, the rustling of paper from somewhere you don't remember touching. You make your way to the front again, checking the window. The fog of your breath briefly clouds the glass. A group of students walks past without looking in. One of them carries a plastic bag from the electronics store down the block. You catch a glimpse of a digital point-and-shoot inside. The kind that promises no film, no waiting, no mistakes. You watch it pass, then return to the counter and sit. The stool wobbles a little, just enough to remind you of its loose leg. You shift your weight until it quiets. On the counter, a faded notepad waits next to a capped pen. You flip through a few pages. Most are blank, except for a few idle notes, serial numbers, half-written reminders, a drawing of a battery that may have been part of something important once. The radio near the back plays quietly, tuned to the same station it's always been. The DJ's voice crackles slightly. She mentions something about traffic near EDSA, then a reminder about Y2K again. You let it play. The volume is low enough that it blends into the hum of the store. A background presence, steady and unbothered. The store is open. Everything is as it should be. And for now, nothing else is required. You stand from the stool slowly, letting your knees adjust. The shop is quiet, holding its breath like it always does in the first hour. No customers yet, just you and the careful layout of things. You begin to drift, not with purpose, but with the rhythm of habit. Your steps take you toward the long row of point-and-shoot cameras near the front, each sitting inside its own faded plastic cradle. Their names are printed in thick Helvetica beneath them: Olympus, Yashica, Pentax. Some of the boxes are sun-bleached on one side, as if permanently leaning into yesterday. Each unit has been reset to its neatest state, batteries removed, viewfinders cleaned. You gently lift one, an Olympus Stylus Epic, and hold it to your eye for a second. The click of the shutter is firm but quiet. Satisfying, like closing a well-made drawer. You put it back exactly as it was, though it probably doesn't matter. Most customers who browse here are already looking for something else. Across from the display is a tall spinning rack meant for film canisters. It squeaks softly as you turn it, revealing mostly expired rolls in cheerful yellow packaging. There's a handful of black and white options tucked at the bottom, slow ISO, temperamental, for customers with patience and tripods. You let it rotate slowly back into place, the plastic rattle like a low murmur. Near the center of the shop is the camcorder wall. It was once a pride point, shelves lined with neat rows of silver-bodied devices that looked futuristic in 1994. Some of them still blink red when plugged in, as if waiting to be taken to a graduation or birthday party. A few display models have missing rubber caps over their ports. You tried to reorder those once, but the supplier never answered. Now they sit there, open-mouthed and indifferent. You stop by the demo shelf with the VHS-C camcorder, the one that still has the family picnic footage you forgot to erase. You let the tape run now and then, just to hear the laughter in the background. A woman off camera says something about ants. A dog barks once. It's become oddly comforting. No one ever asks what's playing. On the far wall, there's a display for memory cards. You only added it last year. The cards are small, absurdly so, thinner than your fingernail and somehow capable of holding hundreds of photos. You tap one of the boxes gently with a knuckle. The plastic crinkles in response. Most customers come in asking for those first, their eyes scanning past the film section as if it's quaint decor. You've started calling that area the museum in your head. Behind the film counter is a drawer with sample prints. You open it halfway. A stack of glossy 4x6 photos sits neatly inside, sorted by paper brand: Fujifilm, Kodak, Konica. Some are sample shots: a smiling child in front of a fountain, a cat looking vaguely annoyed, a woman holding an umbrella that's just a little too red. They're not your photos. They came with the demo packs. You flip through a few, just to feel the texture. The paper is cool, smooth, and slightly curled at the edges. You walk slowly past the enlarger in the corner. It hasn't been used in months. A bit of dust clings to the red filter. The last customer who asked about darkroom printing brought in his teenage son, trying to explain how photos used to come alive in trays. The son nodded politely while texting under the counter. You remember the father more clearly than the photos. The far back of the shop holds the batteries and accessories. Odd little bits in blister packs, lens wipes, flash diffusers, tiny screwdrivers meant for tripod mounts. There's one peg labeled Minolta Remote, out of stock, that's been empty since before Christmas. You keep forgetting to remove the tag, and by now, it feels like part of the store's personality. A quiet optimism that someday, someone will restock it. You pass by the returns box, a plastic tub under the counter where unwanted items go before being reshelved or written off. Inside is a disposable camera with a cracked viewfinder and a return note that simply says, "Didn't feel right." You left it in there out of respect. Some things aren't defective. They're just misunderstood. At the far end of the counter, beside the till, is a notebook where you used to record customer names and orders by hand. The pages are mostly blank now, but a few entries remain. Mr. Lim, 2 rolls Kodak Gold 200. April 2nd, wedding pickup, no envelope. Someone, the usual, you don't remember who wrote that last one. It could have been you. A ceiling fan turns lazily overhead. You notice it more now that you've stopped moving. Its blades wobble just enough to make a soft rhythmic tick, not loud, just insistent, like a clock that doesn't care about the time. You look around. The light has shifted slightly through the front windows. The sun is rising behind the building across the street, casting a long diagonal shadow that creeps toward the film rack. You drift back to the front of the store. A small radio behind the counter mutters through a song you don't recognize. The host comes back on, listing prices of gasoline and upcoming mall sales. You let the words wash over you. Outside, a pigeon flaps past the window, startled by something invisible. You pause beside the tripod display. One of them, the tallest, leans ever so slightly to the left. You've tried tightening it. It still leans. It's like that customer who used to rearrange the film boxes into rainbow order. Completely unnecessary, but somehow pleasant. You leave the tripod alone. The store breathes with you. Nothing moves unless you move. Every shelf, every rattle of plastic, every slow blink of the camcorder's standby light, all of it waits in a kind of quiet agreement. You don't need to sell anything right now. You just need to be here. That's enough. You drift to the back corner of the shop, where the glass display case for the film SLR sits in quiet defiance of the digital future. It's the calmest part of the store. The hum of the radio fades a little here, and even the fluorescent lighting seems more forgiving. The floorboards under your shoes are sturdier, less inclined to creak. It feels like the air settles differently in this part of the room, slower, like it's learned to rest. The Canon AE-1 sits just left of center in the glass case, angled slightly forward, not from design but from the way its base rests against a piece of folded microfiber cloth. You've placed it back the same way each time, carefully aligning it after every shift. Every curious customer who picked it up, squinted through the viewfinder, then asked if you had anything more modern. It still has a roll of film inside. You can't remember when you loaded it, probably last year. Maybe longer. Next to it, the Pentax K1000 leans with the subtle exhaustion of something that has taught hundreds of hands how to use a light meter. Its body is scratched at the edges, but the dials still turn with that satisfying resistance, the kind of mechanical honesty that doesn't blink blue or boot up with a startup sound. Behind them, in the case's shallow back row, are a few Minoltas, a Praktica with a slightly loose rewind crank, and a Ricoh that seems to have developed a polite tilt to the left. You unlock the case with a small key that stays taped to the underside of the counter. The tape has gone brittle, curling at the edges, but you never retape it. The ritual matters. The lock clicks once, and the case sighs open on a slightly uneven hinge. You reach in and lift the AE-1, holding it carefully, the strap slipping from one side. It fits in your palm like a memory, heavier than it looks, and always colder than expected. You wind the advance lever with 2 slow motions, just to hear the mechanical cough of the shutter reset. There's something comforting about this camera. It doesn't ask to be plugged in or updated. It doesn't care about megapixels. Its LCD is non-existent, its autofocus entirely manual. It's a camera that believes in light and timing and the weight of hands. The wooden stool beside the case is the only one in the shop that doesn't wobble. It's a little too low and slightly off-balance front to back, but the legs are solid and the seat is worn smooth from years of patient waiting. Beneath it, 2 old brand stickers cling to the underside like fossils. One is a square red logo from a camera brand that merged into something else. The other says, "Property of Alan," in blue ballpoint, smudged at the edges. No one knows who Alan is. He never worked here. The stool came that way from the supply closet when the shop opened, and by unspoken agreement, the claim has never been disputed. You sit on the stool now, letting your shoulders relax. From here, the store feels quieter, slightly blurred at the edges. You can still hear the hum of the mini fridge in the back and the faint static from the ceiling speaker. The AE-1 rests in your lap, your fingers resting on the shutter button without pressure. The longer you sit, the more the shop begins to feel less like a place of business and more like a holding room for stillness. This corner attracts very few customers, but it has a regular, Mr. Domingo. He arrives with little fanfare, usually in the late morning, carrying a reusable shopping bag with 1 fraying handle and a small, precise frown. He never stays long, never buys anything, and always heads straight for the SLR case. He glances over the lineup like a librarian checking for misplaced volumes. Then he adjusts the middle row, just a few centimeters here and there, a nudge to a lens cap, a rotation of a price tag. He never mentions it, never asks permission. But every visit, the same quiet choreography plays out. You've stopped resetting the display after he leaves. His version makes more sense somehow, as if the cameras are breathing easier when he's done. You suspect he once worked in a camera shop, long ago, or maybe just wished he had. Once, he told you digital cameras cheat, and left before you could ask what he meant. Another time, he brought in a box of expired Fujicolor film, handed it to you like a peace offering, and said, "Develop these only if they're not cursed." One of the rolls came back almost entirely white, with faint pink ghosts along the bottom. He looked at the prints silently for a full minute, then smiled. "Looks about right," he said. He left them behind on the counter. You've kept them in the drawer under the till ever since. They don't take up much space. He's also forgotten 3 umbrellas in the past year, 1 blue, 1 plaid, and 1 that collapses too fast on its own. You store them in the back closet, standing in a coffee can near the mop bucket. When you offered to return them, he waved you off. "It's just water," he said, already halfway to the door. Now and then, he brings you an old photography magazine, the kind with full-page ads for cameras no one sells anymore. He never explains why. He just hands them over and nods toward the back wall, as if to say, "Add this to the archive." You do. The stack has grown into a kind of uneven tower on the back shelf, leaning like a stack of sleepy bricks. You lift the AE-1 to your eye, just for a moment, and look through the viewfinder. Everything sharpens slightly. The grain of the glass display comes into focus. The reflection of your own face, a little tired, a little amused, flickers across the surface. You don't press the shutter. Just holding the frame is enough. Outside, a delivery truck passes with a soft rattle. The light from the window shifts across the case, casting a slow glow across the Minolta. You set the AE-1 down carefully and close the case with a familiar click. The air remains still. The stool doesn't creak. Alan, whoever he was, would be pleased. You stay seated on the wooden stool for a long time. It doesn't complain beneath you, no wobble, no tilt, just a gentle firmness that reminds you you're still here. The AE-1 is back in its place behind the glass, sitting in its modest, centered posture. Nothing inside the display case has moved since you set it down, but you keep glancing back at it, as if it might shift when you're not looking. The shop feels quieter than before, though the sounds haven't changed. The ceiling fan clicks gently with every slow rotation. The radio murmurs in the distance, but it has faded into something textural, a suggestion of speech, not the words themselves. Somewhere in the back, a roll of receipt paper curls inside the printer. It hasn't printed anything in hours, but the weight of the last cut end causes a soft sound when the air moves. Your hands rest on your thighs, fingers slightly curled. You don't move them. You don't need to. There's no customer at the counter, no order to prepare, no film to sort through. There's just the steady rhythm of the store exhaling through its worn floorboards and dusty glass. Outside, the sunlight has started to angle more steeply through the front window, creating narrow lines of warmth across the linoleum floor. You watch one line inch forward by degrees, tracing a slow, golden path toward the tripod stand. You focus on your breath. No instruction, no mindfulness routine, just the way your chest rises and falls with such lazy consistency. Each breath pulls in the dry, oddly comforting scent of old cardboard, rubber camera grips, and that faint, plastic-sweet smell of unopened film canisters. The familiar cocktail of this place, unchanged since the mid-90s, when foot traffic was heavier and people still argued about ISO like it was a personality trait. You hear the faint creak of the metal shelving near the videotapes, though nothing has touched them. It could be the wood settling. Or maybe gravity just remembering it has work to do. You stay seated. Let it creak. Let it shift. Let it speak in whatever language forgotten shelves use. There's a drawer behind the counter filled with unused batteries. Some expired, some still wrapped in plastic, their foil edges catching light whenever you open it. You picture it now without moving, the small, quiet chaos inside. AA, AAA, the odd CR123A that someone once mistook for a miniature canister of breath mints. You'd laughed politely and offered them a packet of silica gel with similar nutritional value. They didn't laugh. You did anyway. You shift slightly on the stool and feel the seams of your pants stretch, the wood of the seat cool beneath your legs. Your eyes land on the ceiling for a while. There's a water stain up there, light brown, ringed like a coffee spill. You traced it once with your eyes during a slow hour last November. It's still there, still resembling the coast of a country no one visits anymore. Everything in the shop feels like that. Slow. Used. Settled. But not abandoned. Even the unused things, the filters in unopened boxes, the flash bulbs no one's asked about in 4 years, the photo albums still sealed in plastic, they rest here like background characters in a play that forgot it had a script. A car passes outside. Then another. You hear them in layers, tire hiss on concrete, a faint thud from a loose trunk, then silence returning like a friend who left their wallet behind. The door doesn't open. You're not expecting it to. You lean forward, elbows on knees, hands laced together. Your eyes drift across the counter, over the clear acrylic pen holder with 3 mismatched pens. One has teeth marks near the cap, probably yours. You wonder when you last had a full conversation here. Not just product specs or payment instructions, but an actual moment that didn't include the words megapixels or USB port. Behind you, the receipt printer hums slightly as it adjusts something in its sleep. You don't turn to look. The receipt roll is halfway through. You know this without checking. You'll replace it when it runs out, not before. A small stack of customer envelopes sits in the inbox, none of them urgent. One of them has a doodle in the corner, a smiley face holding a camera. You stare at it for a while. The lines are wobbly, uneven. It has no fingers, just a circular hand gripping what appears to be a DSLR with legs. It's charmingly wrong. The air moves slightly as the fan above turns another slow cycle. You feel the difference on your skin, not a breeze, just a shift in temperature across your neck and arms. It's the kind of thing you wouldn't notice unless you were already doing nothing at all. You stay like this. You don't think about time. You don't check the clock near the photo lab, the one that always runs 5 minutes fast but is never corrected. You don't reach for the notepad beside the till, or the marker pen that ran out last week and still sits there like a fossil of urgency. You breathe again, slow, even. You don't try to slow it down. It's already found the right pace. The shop breathes with you. Each object around you holds its own quiet. The curled corner of an expired coupon, the cracked casing of an old light meter, the curled photo print of a dog in a Halloween costume that someone left behind years ago and never claimed. You kept it because it felt wrong to throw it away. Now it lives in the display case, just behind the Olympus Trip 35. The costume is a pumpkin. The dog's expression is deeply ambivalent. Stillness isn't something you find. It's something you notice, like a sound that's always been there but stopped competing for your attention. The store doesn't change. It doesn't need to. You don't, either. If you've been enjoying the quiet rhythm of this story so far, consider subscribing to Quilloren Radio. Every listen helps keep the lights warm and the story soft. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We always enjoy hearing where these quiet hours are spent. Now, let's continue. The afternoon begins to stretch into something slower, something slightly less tethered. Time flattens here. Not in a dramatic, sci-fi sort of way, more like the feeling of blinking and realizing you haven't moved in half an hour. The light coming through the window softens, shifting into a deeper gold that clings gently to the edges of the glass counters and the back wall where the posters have begun to curl at the corners. You're still on the stool, though you no longer remember how long it's been. Your elbows rest on the counter now, but not because you moved them consciously. They just found their way there. Your left wrist is angled slightly awkwardly on the surface, but you don't bother to adjust it. Comfort is more of an ambient suggestion now. There's a small mirror above the counter, not for customers, but so you can occasionally check behind you without turning your head. It's angled in a way that reflects the back wall, and sometimes your shoulder if you sit just right. Now, it reflects a faint glimmer, the glass of the AE1's case catching the light. For a moment, it looks like the camera has blinked at you. You don't react. Not because it didn't register, you just don't mind. The shop has a way of bending perception when you're still long enough. The long glass display counter seems longer than usual today. Maybe a few centimeters. Or maybe it's always been this long and you just never noticed the way it stretches from one end of the store to the other, like a quiet timeline filled with forgotten ambitions and untouched warranties. There's a feeling in the air, as if everything inside the shop is holding its breath. Not in anticipation, more in mutual agreement to pause. Even the fan above sounds less certain with each rotation, like it's forgetting why it started moving in the first place. On one of the shelves to your right, a Polaroid camera sits at a slightly different angle than usual. Its box is half torn, and the photo slot is covered in a sticker that says, "Do not load, demo only." You don't remember putting that sticker on there. Maybe someone else did, years ago. Or maybe the camera did it itself. These are the kinds of thoughts that feel perfectly reasonable now. The backroom door has been closed all day, but you glance at it and feel as if it's slightly ajar. It isn't. But you could swear you see a sliver of light beneath it, like someone turned on the fluorescent bulb back there and walked away. That light's been broken since June. You're almost sure of it. A slight hum settles into the floor, not a sound, exactly, more of a vibration that you only notice because your foot brushes the base of the counter. The sensation is neither disturbing nor alarming. It simply is. You shift your heel slightly, and it stops. The receipt printer makes a small coughing noise, then falls silent again. Nothing prints. Nothing changes. But the act itself feels like a punctuation mark in a sentence that no one wrote. You stare at it for a moment longer than necessary, then let your gaze drift elsewhere. There's a faint scent now, one you haven't noticed before. Like lemon-scented cleaner and the waxy paper of photo envelopes. You think, briefly, of a customer from last winter. A woman who always wore the same wool coat and left behind the smell of lavender gum. She used to linger by the slide projector in the corner, not speaking, just looking at the labels. One day, she handed you a roll of film and said, "I think this one's all flowers," and then never came back for it. That roll is still in the drawer beneath the register, nestled beside a warranty card from 1996 and a long-expired rebate form for a Canon printer. You think of her sometimes when the store is this quiet, when the world feels held together by dust and faint memory. The stool you sit on creaks softly, not as protest, but as punctuation. Even the furniture has started to speak incomplete thoughts now. You shift slightly to one side, and it settles again. The shelf near the front holds a single roll of Kodachrome that's been out of production for years. You keep it there like a fossil, a museum piece that no one asks about anymore. Today, it looks unusually vibrant, like the label has somehow darkened to a richer red. You don't reach for it. You just note the change and store it somewhere in your brain labeled later. The light shifts again. Not brighter or dimmer, just angled differently, like the sun has remembered a better way to enter the shop. The lines on the floor move with it, bending slightly as they fall across the metal tripod display. You look away, then back again. The lines seem straighter now. Or maybe the floor adjusted. You rest your head in your hand, elbow on the counter, letting your thoughts scatter like loose negatives in a drawer. You think about how digital cameras never need to pause like this. They blink, they charge, they beep. There's no room for quiet error, no slow revelation in a bad exposure. They just go. You're not sure that's better. Somewhere toward the back of the store, a box shifts slightly on a shelf. It could be the fan, or gravity, or just memory playing with your ears. You don't stand up to check. It doesn't matter. Everything here is in agreement, the camera cases, the scratched counter, the hanging price tags that gently twist in the draft. None of it is urgent. None of it wants anything. Even you, sitting here in this moment, have softened into something that doesn't require explanation. There's a moment, brief, quiet, and almost unnoticeable, when the sound of the fan changes pitch. Not dramatically. Just a subtle dip, like it's briefly second-guessing its direction. That's all it takes. The whole atmosphere of the store gently tilts. You're still at the counter, but now the air feels cooler. Not cold. Just cooler. The kind of cool that happens when a cloud passes in front of the sun, or when someone opens a door on the far side of a quiet room. You glance toward the front of the store, but the glass door hasn't moved. The outside is still, pale sunlight, the same row of parked cars, the same dented mailbox that hasn't been repaired since last year. But inside, something has shifted. The shadow on the floor now stretches slightly farther than it did a minute ago. It pulls beneath the tripod stand in a way that seems new. The fluorescent lights above buzz a little softer, like they've dimmed by a fraction no one requested. Your eyes slowly adjust, though they don't need to. You weren't straining. It's more of a passive recalibration, the room exhaling and settling into a new version of itself. You get up from the stool without thinking. Not because you need to do anything, but because your legs feel like moving. The linoleum is cool beneath your shoes. Each step carries the faint sound of soles on tile, and your weight seems to echo more now, not louder, just with more presence. As if the space is listening again. You wander toward the back wall. The Polaroid box on the middle shelf has shifted slightly in its tray. Not in a suspicious way. More like someone nudged it half an inch to the left. You press the corner gently with your finger and it swivels slightly, then stops. A small puff of dust lifts and settles, and with it comes a scent, the cardboardy tang of old packaging and a distant trace of something minty. You round the display rack of camera straps, thick nylon bands, some with tiny plastic buckles, others with printed brand names fading into the weave. One strap always hangs slightly lower than the others, as if resigning itself to never being chosen. You adjust it absently, and it returns to the same angle the moment you let go. You leave it alone. It has clearly made its decision. The cooler air seems to concentrate toward the back corner of the store, near the door to the photo lab. That door is always closed. It's not locked, but you rarely open it now. The machines inside haven't run since early spring. No one develops film here anymore. You just tell customers where to drop it off downtown. But today, the door is slightly ajar. Just enough to notice. A sliver. You wouldn't have spotted it from the counter. But here, up close, you can see the thin line of shadow along the frame, the faint outline of the hinge. You don't open it. You don't need to. The shift isn't about the door. It's about the room deciding that things can be different now, just a little. The lights, the air, the sound of your own breathing. Everything has moved one click to the left. There's a stool in the corner near the photo paper cabinet. You don't remember it being there before. It's the same model as the one at the front counter, same nubby fabric seat, same slightly wobbly leg. You sit on it without hesitation, and it holds your weight with a small creak. A polite one. From here, the shop looks unfamiliar in the smallest, most ordinary ways. The AE1 case glints slightly differently. The sign above the film rack seems closer to the ceiling than before. Even the handwritten sale tag under the Minolta feels newer, though the ink is still faded. You rest your hands in your lap. The air hums quietly, not from any particular machine, just a low ambient presence. The kind of hum that settles in after too many quiet minutes. You feel it in your shoulders more than your ears. On the floor near your foot is a small cardboard box with no label. It looks like it's been there forever, but you've never seen it before. You don't open it. It doesn't ask to be opened. It simply exists. Another part of the quiet arrangement of things. You lean back slightly, feeling the stool adjust beneath you. It rocks once and steadies. From here, the light has taken on a faint bluish tone. Not cold, more like a memory of late afternoon. There's no way to tell what time it is exactly. You stopped checking hours ago. The window at the front of the shop has caught a reflection that wasn't there before. It's not showing the street anymore. Instead, it catches a pale wash of ceiling tiles and camera boxes, as if the shop is looking at itself now. Not in a mirror, just inwardly. Something distant rattles, a metal hinge or a shelf expanding. You don't move. You just blink once, slowly, and let the sound pass through you. There's no urgency in it. Just a gentle reminder that the store is still here with you. Even the camera bags seem quieter now, their shapes slightly softened, their straps resting a bit more neatly than they usually do. The one with the broken zipper tab looks almost peaceful, as if content with its minor flaw. You stay seated. There's nowhere else to be. The shift has already happened, not dramatic, not loud. Just enough to let the air change, the light adjust, the mood deepen. This isn't a moment of transformation. It's a recalibration. A quiet nod from the store, letting you know that it can still surprise you, even without moving. The longer you sit, the more the stool begins to feel like part of you, not in a dramatic sense, just in the way certain chairs eventually forget they weren't built for your shape. It wobbles once under your right heel and then gives up, settling quietly. You're not slouching, but you're definitely no longer upright. The store allows it. The cool air has evened out. Not cold. Not warm. Just a low, ambient neutrality that wraps around your arms like a loosely knit sweater. You breathe in slowly through your nose, and it smells like dust, maybe. Old plastic. The faint rubbery scent of camera grips. There's a hint of something floral, possibly from that air freshener by the entrance that's never worked properly but still insists on releasing a puff every few hours, more out of habit than effectiveness. The space has softened. Everything is still in place, the displays, the worn-out signs, the dusty corners, but edges feel duller now, less committed to being sharp. Even the harsh lines of the glass counter seem rounded at the corners. You rest your hands on your knees and notice how still you've become. Not rigid. Just still. A sound drifts in, not from outside, but from somewhere deep inside the store's walls. It might be the pipes. Or an old vent. Or the ghost of a Kodak carousel projector adjusting slides that aren't there. Whatever it is, it fades quickly, as if remembering it wasn't needed. Your eyes settle on the display across from you, the shelf with all the manual winders. They've never sold well. A few have gathered a thin layer of dust that even weekly cleaning doesn't erase anymore. But now, they look different. Not livelier, just more grounded. Like they've been here so long, they've decided they are the permanent residents and you're just passing through. You let your shoulders relax. There's no clock in view, and you've forgotten the last time you looked at one. The register screen is dark now, the screensaver long asleep. You know if you stood up, you could wake it with a key press. But there's no need. No one's walked in for a while. Not since the last regular, the one who always adjusts the window tripod even though you've asked him not to. He means well. You hope he made it home before it rained. Your back presses gently into the wall behind you. It's slightly cool, but not unpleasant. The sensation anchors you. There's a soft awareness of your own breath, not loud, just rhythmic. In, then out. Even. Reliable. The kind of breath you notice only when everything else is quiet. One of the price tags near the door has peeled at the corner. It flutters once, lightly, in air that isn't moving. You watch it for a while. It doesn't fall off. It just continues to think about it. There's a camera case on the floor nearby. Black leather, cracked slightly along the edges. You haven't used it in years, but it's always made its way back to this spot. Like a cat that refuses to be relocated. You reach out and nudge it with your toe. It shifts an inch and stops, satisfied. Somewhere, a fluorescent bulb flickers. Not the dramatic kind, just a brief hesitation, as if wondering whether to continue. Then it does. The light evens out again. Steady. Unremarkable. Comforting. You let your eyes drift to the ceiling tiles. You've memorized most of their patterns, the one with the small water stain, the one with the nail pop. They don't change. They aren't supposed to. But now, in this stillness, they seem to offer a kind of reassurance. A ceiling that has seen hundreds of Tuesdays, a roof that has let time pass without urgency. The hum of the lights returns, low and consistent. It blends with your breath. Not in sync, not perfectly timed, just enough to make it hard to tell which came first. You sit with that sound for a long while. You don't count the minutes. There's no need. From this angle, you can see the edge of the display shelf where someone left a pencil last week. Yellow. Dull tip. You meant to put it back in the drawer, but forgot. Now it seems settled, like it's been adopted by the wood grain and can't be moved without formal permission. It's not clutter. It's part of the scene. You shift your weight slightly. The stool adjusts beneath you with a soft groan, then stills. Your body feels a little heavier now, but in a good way. Like gravity is being gentle. There's nothing left to do. No inventory to check. No signs to straighten. The customer counter hasn't moved in the last hour. The glass door at the front has stayed closed. Outside, the world might be spinning, or maybe it's paused, too. You wouldn't know. You don't need to know. There's a comfort in this. A kind of rooted stillness that doesn't ask for anything. You're not meditating. You're not reflecting. You're just here. Fully. Completely. Breathing in the quiet. Breathing out the weight of everything else. Even the idea of standing up feels like something to postpone. The thought exists, but it's not urgent. The room has wrapped itself around you, and it would rather you stay. You stay there a while longer, letting the weight of the air and the soft, indifferent hum of the store settle around you. There's no decision to be made. No shift of mood or meaning. Just you, in a room that hasn't asked anything of you all day. That's been the quiet gift of it, really, the permission to just be here. Your legs are stretched a bit now, one foot half-cocked against the edge of a shelf. It's a position you didn't consciously choose, but it's one your body seems pleased with. Comfortable, easy. The sort of posture people only reach when they've long stopped performing presence and simply belong where they are. You close your eyes for a few breaths, not out of fatigue, just because it feels like the kind of moment where nothing visual is necessary. There's a small reflection in the corner of the glass case, catching light from a dim fixture above. It pulses slowly with movement, maybe from a car driving past outside, or the neon flicker from the laundromat sign next door. You don't look directly at it. You just note its rhythm, how steady and unbothered it is. Like it's not trying to illuminate anything in particular, just proving it's still here. Somewhere on the far wall, a poster remains curled at the bottom corners. It's the same one you put up 2 years ago. A promotional piece for a discontinued model, all sharp angles and exaggerated smiles. You meant to take it down months ago, but now its presence feels earned, a soft, aging detail that's learned to blend in. It looks better this way, a little faded, a little bowed, completely unbothered by relevance. Behind you, the chair creaks once, either in protest or approval. The kind of sound furniture makes when it's been lived in, not worn out, but worn enough to become familiar. You take another breath. It's not deep or dramatic, just slow. A breath that reminds you this is the only moment that exists. Not out there, not in the years ahead or behind. Just this. You glance at the watch on your wrist, mostly out of instinct. The numbers blur slightly, not because your vision is tired but because the need for time has softened. Hours don't matter in here. Minutes especially don't. You lower your hand again, the movement smooth, slow. Deliberate in its lack of urgency. Even the glass door at the front of the store seems to have resigned itself to the evening. Its frame catches no more footsteps. Its reflection has gone dim. You've watched enough customers move through that space to know its full routine, the sound it makes when someone enters too quickly, the way it never fully shuts without a second nudge. But tonight, it just stands there. Quiet, present, not expecting anything. You think about the Polaroid on the back counter. The one you stopped bothering to move to the display shelf. It lives in that corner now, next to the receipts that no longer get printed, and the small metal tin with batteries you haven't checked for months. The Polaroid's lens cap is missing. You never found it. But the camera's still good. Still solid in your hand, should you ever decide to use it again. It doesn't ask for updates or software or even attention. It just waits. A low creak sounds overhead. Nothing alarming. Maybe a shift in the ceiling tiles or the sigh of the building settling into the hour. It's the kind of sound you wouldn't notice anywhere else. But here, it registers. Like the room clearing its throat before leaning back into silence. You rub your thumb along the edge of your palm. The motion is soft, repetitive. A small, quiet loop. Like tracing a thought that never quite turns into a sentence. There's something peaceful about the repetition, the way certain movements anchor you, almost without asking. In the background, the world has slowed. Cars outside no longer rush. Even the weather seems to be holding its breath. You can't hear rain or wind or even the ticking of the clock above the filing cabinet. But you can feel that everything beyond the walls has dimmed slightly. As if the outside agreed to lower its volume just for this. The idea of closing up doesn't even register as a task. The keys are in the drawer, the switch is by the door. But there's no need to act on either. Not yet. Not when the room feels like this, held in suspension, content to exist in this soft stretch of stillness. You glance once more across the displays. The film rolls lined up like quiet soldiers, the boxed cameras still angled slightly off from your last half-hearted attempt at straightening. Nothing is perfect. Nothing needs to be. In this light, imperfection looks like intimacy, the small fingerprints on the glass, the uneven stack of brochures, the scuff on the tile that no one's noticed in weeks. It's all settled into the kind of normal that doesn't require commentary. You feel the corners of your mouth shift slightly. Not a smile, exactly, just the smallest recognition of peace. A silent, personal agreement with the room. A moment where nothing needs to be named. The hum of the fluorescent above you grows softer again, barely there now. Your breath continues its steady rhythm. In, then out. The same pace it's held for minutes, maybe hours. You've lost track, and that's fine. There's nowhere else to be. No one waiting on the other end. Just this. Soon, the lights might dim further. Or maybe you'll stand, stretch, shuffle to the back to unplug a cord that doesn't really need unplugging. But for now, your body stays grounded. Heavy in a comfortable way. Rooted in the center of a space that has shaped itself gently around you. You let your eyes drift once more to the far wall, to the camera strap hanging quietly from its peg. A customer left it once, said they'd come back. They never did. It's been years. It still hangs there, not forgotten, just accepted. A small testament to the kind of memory that never quite sharpens or fades. It simply stays. You stay where you are, still seated at the counter, long after the door has stopped jingling. The store doesn't ask anything of you anymore. The registers have cooled, the air has gone still, and the lights no longer hum, they settle, low and warm, into a kind of hush that feels earned. You lean back just slightly, and the stool under you creaks in a way that isn't bothersome, only familiar. You can feel its worn joints give a little in rhythm with your breath. It's not sleep yet, but something close to it. The kind of stillness that floats right at the edge. You don't feel tired, not exactly. You feel like you've run out of questions to ask. The shelves don't move. The boxes of film look just as they did this morning, their corners neatly aligned like sleeping books. The camera straps hang slack from their pegs, and the little informational cards under the displays, laminated years ago and always slightly curled at the edges, lie unread and content with that. You think of the battery drawer. Of how many AA rechargeables you've handled without ever counting them. Of that one stubborn cable that never coils right no matter how you try. Of the sticker on the fridge in the back, the one that says, "Smile, someone's shooting," and how it's been there long enough that you've forgotten who put it there. The clock ticks, but you don't check it. You already know it's past whatever hour matters. Nothing is open. No one is waiting. Outside, the windows reflect the interior now more than the street. A faint shadow of yourself in the glass, layered over the displays, makes it look like you're floating through the store instead of sitting in it. A translucent version of you, drifting past the rows, blending into the lens cabinet and the tall tripod in the corner. You close your eyes for a moment, not to sleep but to rest your focus. When you open them again, the room has not changed, and that feels like a small kindness. The air smells faintly of carpet glue and dust, the quiet scent of time being left alone. The Canon AE-1 is still in the case. You almost expect it to move sometimes, just slightly. To lift one corner of its body and reposition itself like an old cat. But it never does. It simply stays, waiting. The way it always has. There is something about that, about how many years it has sat, untouched but cared for, that slows your chest. A weight that isn't heavy, only settled. Something like peace, but quieter. The stool doesn't shift. The air doesn't stir. The whole store, it seems, is suspended in a single held breath. And there, in that breath, your thoughts begin to slide. Not with effort. Not even with intent. But like film moving gently across a reel. Smooth, faint, inevitable. Your mind begins to soften at the edges. The same way an old photograph blurs slightly when held too long. There are no sharp thoughts now. Only textures. The smooth surface of the glass case. The gentle resist of the shutter button. The soft click of a lens cap. The weight of your shoes on worn linoleum. The light, uneven hum of a bulb near the ceiling. Your breathing matches it, slow, warm, nearly inaudible. You don't count it. You don't track it. You let it happen. Another minute passes, or perhaps 5. There's no difference now. You think briefly of the customers. Of the way they used to ask about flash sync speeds and light meters, and now they ask about megapixels. You smile, but it doesn't rise all the way to your face. It stays there in the chest, content. Maybe tomorrow, someone will finally ask about the pen tax again. Maybe not. Either way, the stool will still be here. The Canon will still sit like a sentry. The pegboard wall will still lean a little to the left. And the old fluorescent above the film rack will still flicker every 8th blink, like it's breathing. And then the words begin to trail. Not disappear. Just blur. Like ink just starting to run in the corner of a page. The store grows quieter still, not in volume, but in weight. As though it's folded its arms and nodded once. As though it knows the day is complete. You lean forward slightly, just enough for your spine to ease and your neck to release its hold. The posture of someone who's not planning to move again for a while. The air carries no questions. Just warmth. Just stillness. Just one more moment, gently extended. And if sleep finds you here, in the hush of fluorescent hums and soft chair creaks, surrounded by quiet glass and familiar shadows, then let it. Let it carry you slowly through the shuttered aisles and over the display counters and past the fading posters on the far wall. Let it carry you across soft light, across breath, across nothing in particular. You don't have to lift a hand. You don't have to think a thought. There is nothing else to hold now. The night has you. The warmth stays. The air settles again. You exhale once more. And everything fades.